Yo, what is going on, you guys, and welcome back to a brand new video. And in today's video I'm bringing you another fanfiction and phase 3 to my Spider-Man cinematic universe. But before we do get into that, if you are new around here and enjoy all types of Spider-Man content, from news about everything Spider-Man and fanfictions like these, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell next to the subscribe button so you do not miss another video as soon as it comes out on the channel. With that being said, let's get straight into it. So let's kick things off straight away with the first film, which will be the start of the Peter Parker adult trilogy and the 7th film in the Spider-Man series, Spider-Man Callback. This film will focus heavily on Peter Parker as a character. I would like this film to slow things down and be a real character study for Spider-Man. After the death of Gwen Stacy, Peter is Spider-Man no more, which gives us so much material to work with in terms of exploring the emotional depth and aspect of how this affected Peter Parker during the time between the death and now. Peter has subsequently been fired from the Daily Bugle since Spider-Man is not around anymore for him to take pictures of. And since he's graduated college, Peter is working as a barista at a coffee shop, and this is where he will meet none other than Mary Jane Watson. This film will start to build a relationship between the two, but it'll be a different dynamic to how it was with Gwen Stacy. Gwen was very much the classic Romeo and Juliet love for Peter, but Mary Jane will be the soulmate, the best friend, the person who can understand Peter and what he's going through like no one else can. MJ will come from an abusive background with her father, just like in the comics, and will hide under a cool, smooth, and confident demeanor. However, this film's main theme will start to look at bringing Peter back to being Spider-Man again. And the villain of this film will be the Vulture. Vulture's story will parallel Peter's in that his wife was subsequently murdered and thus sending him down a dark path. Peter will have to relearn what Uncle Ben taught him by seeing the world around him through other people's eyes. MJ's backstory is also revealed to Peter by the end of the movie when they start to become close with one another. MJ will tell Peter how she would always want someone to just get her out of there, but there was never anyone else around, which will be a metaphor and propel Peter back into being Spider-Man to help the little guy and stop the Vulture. The next film in the phase will be titled Silver and Black, similar to the cancelled film about the two that Sony had in production. This film will be the third adventure for Black Cat and Silver Sable, but this time will be completely detached from the Wilson Fisk storyline. Since most of the story threads from phase 1 were wrapped up in phase 2, almost making them two phases a separate story of their own, phase 3 will start anew for Black Cat and Sable, just like we have for Peter Parker. At the start, Felicia will hang up the Black Cat mantle and will want to step down and live a normal life. However, Sable will carry on fighting as that's all she's known. This film will cross over with the S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show from phase 2, as there will be a corrupted entity leaking S.H.I.E.L.D. information. Felicia and Sable will get wrapped into this when Sable gets a call to apply to work for S.H.I.E.L.D. The film will focus on Felicia being afraid to lose what she has with Sable, as everyone in her life before seems to leave or die. Her newfound relationship with Sable changes things for her as she steps back into the shoes of Black Cat one last time to help Sable, S.H.I.E.L.D. and the new-founded Agent Venom to track down this traitor, who turns out to be in the end Baron Zemo, who works for a rival organization, Hydra. Now, Hydra and Zemo are not the same as they are in the normal Marvel universe. As I've said previously and many times before, this is the Spider-Man cinematic universe, so if I pull characters from the main Marvel universe, they may not be the same due to me using them to service the Spider-Man side of the story instead. The film ends with Felicia realizing that she can't be scared of losing Sable because they're clearly going on two different paths, and she hangs up the Black Cat cowl for the very last time as Silver Sable joins S.H.I.E.L.D. full time. The next film in the phase will start to crank things back up to 100 as we step into the new storyline for this phase, which is Spider-Man: The Clone Saga Part 1. The first part to this massive story is going to be more of a grounded film, while Part 2, which we will talk about in just a minute, will be the big culmination story of this phase. This film will very much be focusing on MJ and Peter as we build up their relationship as well. This film will also include more Aunt May stuff as Peter starts visiting her more. As it turns out, Peter is struggling to pay the rent at the apartment that he has after he finished college, so he starts to move back in with Aunt May. Mary Jane is actually living with her aunt as well, Anna Watson. And because of this introduces Anna Watson to May as well, and they become really good friends. So like how it was in the comics, except for it's actually the other way round. It's Mary Jane and Peter Parker that introduce them two to each other. Peter's story in these two films is him not living up to his potential. Peter will start to become lazy in his own life as Spider-Man is once again taking up the vast majority of his time. MJ will also start to clock on to Peter as she grows suspicious of his disappearances. The villain of this film will be Miles Warren, aka the Jackal if you hadn't guessed already. His main objective will be to clone Spider-Man, as you probably guessed. His motivation, however, is unknown at this time, which leads into a massive mystery in the second part. This film ends with a massive battle in order to capture Spider-Man. Warren takes MJ hostage to bring Peter in, which he does successfully. However, once Peter is taken hostage and Warren's attention is on him, MJ successfully escapes and saves Peter from the grasp of Warren, showing her fierce nature. This is the moment in which MJ realizes that her suspicions are true, and that Peter is in fact Spider-Man. However, it's already too late, and the cliffhanger ending to part 1 is that the clone of Peter Parker is born, and Miles Warren successfully completed his mission. The next film in the phase is Spider-Man The Clone Saga Part 2, continuing the story from Part 1. The story is cranked way up to 1000 here, as a clone of Peter Parker is now born. The film starts with a massive battle between the two Spider-Men and the Jackal. They successfully escape, in which the film will focus on the duality of both Peter Parkers. Peter 1, our Peter from the last 7 films, still carries that lazy nature about him, whilst Peter 2, the clone, starts to be more productive as Peter Parker, thus showing us the flaws in our Peter's character. MJ, after dealing with the revelation that Peter is Spider-Man, now has to deal with 2 of them. The problem is that the clone has all of Peter's memories, which makes it difficult for his relationship with Mary Jane. They will have a conversation when Peter 1 is out doing Spider-Man stuff, where they speak on their relationship with each other. MJ clearly feels uncomfortable, as she feels as if she's not even talking to her Peter, even though by a technicality she is. The clone will say, "You love him, don't you?" And Mary Jane will nod as she holds her head down. MJ will ask if he loves her back, and he will say yes. The clone says that he wishes he was the real Peter, and that it's not fair. Through this one scene, it sets the stage for the rest of the film. And throughout the film, it will be revealed to us that Miles Warren will be discussing with a mystery entity, which reveals that he was a pawn all this time to a bigger master plan. The film culminates when the Jackal is defeated by both Peter Parkers. It's revealed that the man behind it all was in fact Doc Ock. At the end of the film, all of the Clone Saga comes together and makes so much sense when we realize that Doc Ock's body has been deteriorating, and he thought that if he could get someone to clone Peter Parker, he could use their body as his own. And that's where Miles Warren came in as the Jackal. He had the expertise in cloning to clone Peter Parker for Doc Ock. And half the job is already done for him, so Doc Ock comes in and finishes it off. However, Doc Ock is at a disadvantage, because he knows that he can't take them both down, and he can't defeat them. There is 2 experienced Spider-Men here, and his body is slowly deteriorating. So by the end of the fight, both the Peters defeat Doc Ock. Peter 2, the clone, goes on to change his name to Ben Reilly, dyes his hair blonde, and moves out of the state. MJ and Peter are happy as MJ admits her feelings to him after what happened with Ben earlier in the movie. But Peter seems off. And it turns out that Doc Ock, in their battle, managed to successfully transfer his consciousness into one of the Peter's bodies. But it wasn't the clone, it was Peter Parker himself. That is it for the mainline story. However, there will be one last film in the slate, which will be called Ben Reilly, Spider-Man. And this film will follow Ben Reilly on his adventures as Spider-Man through the different states. It'll be a small film and won't focus on anything big, but Ben will learn to live his life differently and not let the distractions of his past get to him, as he has to come to terms with the fact that he is a clone. That is it for the movies, but let's move on to the shows. The first show will be The Underground Season 3, which will bring the story full circle and will end just before the start of the first Spider-Man film, focusing on how Wilson Fisk got into the position he was straight before the first movie. This season will also include Norman Osborn, as well as their rivalry was a massive part of that first trilogy. The next show will be Agent Venom, which will be a continuation of the S.H.I.E.L.D. show, continuing Flash's story as Agent Venom. He will go on secret undercover missions to seek out Magia and other big villainous crime bosses. We will also get a second season of NYC Call and Rescue, which will once again expand more upon our police force characters. And then we will get a brand new show in Phase 3, which will be called Morbius the Living Vampire. This show will tap into the wackier side of the universe, which will see Dr. Michael Morbius transform into a living vampire and trying to control his powers. I imagine the character being portrayed how he was in the 90s TV show, if that gives any indication into imagining what it would be like. But with that being said, that is it for Phase 3 of my Spider-Man cinematic universe. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that like button and comment down below what you thought of this phase. Also, if you did enjoy these type of videos, then make sure to subscribe so you do not miss Phase 4 when that releases. With that being said, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Take care, and peace.